Hi, welcome everybody. It's Peter Downs here from the Inclusion Club. It's a great pleasure to introduce you today to Phil Hall from Rough Riders in the UK. Hi, Phil.
Hi.
How are you going there?
Hi, it's all good. It's all good. Very cold and very wet, but that's England for you.
It's England, yeah, yeah. All right, I won't describe. I think Phil's going to do a much better job than me at describing who Rough Riders are, and you can also see in this episode about Rough Riders what they do. But Phil, in a very quick snapshot, can you just describe to us who are Rough Riders? What do you do?
Well, Rough Riders was set up by myself after I went to America to try what we call in the UK gravity biking, which is a form of downhill mountain biking, which was devised in America as an ideal form of mountain biking for disabled people. So we ride a four-wheel mountain bike, but they are based on a normal, conventional downhill mountain bike. So it's full suspension, hydraulic disc brakes, really very capable machines. The only difference being that we don't have any pedals. Hence, we've coined the phrase gravity bike. So we rely totally on the downhill experience to get us to the bottom. And then it's just a question of riding it as fast as you dare. You know, obviously, if you brake, then you're going to wash some of your speed off and some of the excitement. If you go too fast, you might end up in a tree like I've done before now. So it's a case of gauging your speed and getting an adrenaline fix like other riders do, and we're sort of promoting it as a fully inclusive sport as well because there's no reason why an able-bodied person wouldn't want to have a go. We get quite a lot of people approach us in the UK saying they'd like to have a go, and we've already had a few people doing taster days with us that are able-bodied guys that are used to riding normal downhill bikes and just fancy the experience of riding four wheels instead of two. And it's like a cross between rallying and downhill mountain biking. So it's a real great fun.
Yeah, it certainly looks it. It certainly looks it. Now, I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I'm guessing the mountain bike community generally are pretty an inclusive and pretty open attitudes towards inclusion. Generally speaking, would that be
Yeah,
right?
very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. The people that actually ride are just fascinated with the bikes when we turn up with our bikes, and we're constantly being asked questions and how long we've been riding, where do we ride, there's sort of a look of amazement on some people's faces, but not in a patronising way at all. They're really sort of pleased that we're out there on the trails with them, and that people are so nice as well. Mountain bikers get this kind of reputation, especially downhill mountain bikers, because it's an extreme sport. I think we're all labelled as a bit nuts, and
Yeah.
people tend to avoid you. But they're the nicest bunch of people, and the amount of times we've perhaps had a bit of a hiccup on a trail, and you've maybe had a bit of a crash or whatever. As soon as somebody rides past, they won't just ride past you. They'll stop and ask if you need assistance, and again, not in a patronising way. They just, if they can offer the help, they will do, sort of thing. But yeah, very accepting and very, very pleased to see disabled riders out there riding
Yeah.
with them because they understand the importance of getting out in the mountains and experiencing, the terrain and the adrenaline and everything else that the sport offers. So
It's
yeah,
something to
it's,
do with
it's
the nature of the sport, isn't it? In a way that it lends itself to that sort of open attitude and kind of acceptance. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think because, like I say, because people sort of have this attitude of, oh, downhillers are all a bit mad, then we then all sort of stick together and look after each other, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause it is a slightly extreme sport. It can be dangerous. I mean, I've ridden trails in the past and I've passed somebody that's come off on two wheels. So I'll stop and say, do you need any assistance? From the point of view of obviously I can't give them assistance, but I can get to the bottom and alert somebody that look there's somebody on the trail, with an injury or with problems or whatever. And yeah, it's very much like quite a sort of close knit community, although they don't seem to refuse anybody either. It's not one of these clicky type communities that if you're not extreme enough, you're not welcome type of thing.
Yep.
Um, it's just if you like downhill mountain biking, you're part of the family, and that's basically it,
Yeah. So,
which is fantastic.
so is your major challenge then has been probably a technical one in terms of the mountain bike itself and the terrain in which the trails, the sort you do stuff on. So tell us a bit about the
Yeah, I guess
bikes.
so. Yeah. I guess that's really, like you say, the most well. There's two elements to it, I suppose. One of the challenging parts for us in the UK has been to try and get recognition from outside of the sport with regards to things like funding and sports organisations accepting the fact that it should be okay for disabled people to still do extreme sports, because there's a real sort of there's almost like a knee-jerk reaction of, whoa, you're going down a mountain and you normally sit in a wheelchair. What are you doing? I've even had people say to me, are you not afraid of injuring yourself again? And I say, well, aren't normal mountain bikers afraid of injuring themselves? You've got to just, gauge that and go as fast as you dare go. You don't go silly, otherwise you can't have an accident. But yeah, I suppose the biggest challenge of all has been the terrain. Where can we ride? We've got to accept that not all trails are suitable for us to ride at, and they never will be. That's part and parcel. There's single track trails all over the place in the UK that would probably be good for us to ride if they were slightly wider, for instance. But we don't want to.
Sorry, Phil,
I was going to say, we don't want to spoil the scene by going round and saying to we deal with the Forestry Commission predominantly over here, who own a lot of the land where these trails are on. Now, we don't want to go to the Forestry Commission every time we discover a new trail and say, right, we want to make it slightly wider and, make it slightly less extreme, and can we make the jumps a bit smaller and things like that? Because then obviously all the regular guys that turn up are just going to say, thanks, you've just ruined my favourite trail. So we only ever sort of ask for adaptations where we know it's not going to infringe on the experience of ordinary riders, and that's what works really well, because a lot of trails, people think, we've had a sort of Q&A quite a few times with Forestry Commission staff, and they say, well, we don't think you'll be able to ride here. And we say, well, look, we've looked at videos. It looks pretty suitable. Let's taste test it and see what the problems are. And when we actually do that, we might find a trail that's sort of over a kilometre long, maybe 2 or 3 kilometres long, a good sort of 5 minutes of run downhill. And there might be 2 changes to make on the entire trail. And a lot of the time, if it's something like a really extreme technical trail feature, like there might be a really big jump that our bikes just can't cope with, and it would be dangerous to even attempt, then we just generally say, can we build a ride around it, so that it gives people an alternative route around the obstacle. And the Forestry Commission have done that, and of course it then doesn't affect normal riders. And they've also given us feedback to say, this is brilliant what you've done, because this huge feature, we've had loads of people having accidents, and now we've got a ride around. So people that aren't as confident or maybe as experienced on 2 wheels have that option to ride around it as well, until they build up the confidence and their experience a little bit more. So
it wouldn't do you any good to go in there. It wouldn't do you any good to go in there saying you must provide for us. And I like the way that you kind of compromise and negotiate around that.
You've got to, yeah, because we don't want to upset normal mountain bikers, and we've got to be realistic with the Forestry Commission. They haven't got, bottomless pockets, and why should they accommodate us over anybody else? We've got to fit in with the scene that's already there. We're asking to be accepted by a scene that already exists.
I was interested on that, on how you negotiate that, because you have a great expression on your website that says gravity mountain bike friendly venues. Which
is basically it. Sorry, the cats.
The cats, yeah, my cat does that as well. Yeah.
Look, the cat's famous, look.
Yeah, he's on there.
That's Morris.
What's his name?
He's not very good. Come on, get down.
What's his name?
Moz.
Moz.
Moz, yeah, short for Morris. That's his Sunday name.
Oh, okay. That's good. So tell us a bit more about Gravity. Is it expensive? Is it expensive sport for people to come into, or?
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I set up the club. When I wanted to experience it myself, there was nowhere in the UK that even offered the experience, which shocked me. The way I found out about it was I just saw a poster in an activity centre one day, and there was just a big kind of A2 poster on a wall in a frame of a guy kicking up a load of dust, half in the air, half about to land on this weird 4-wheel go-kart mountain bike contraption thing. And I thought, what is that? Because I used to downhill mountain bike before my accident. And as soon as I saw the picture, I thought, "Wow, I want to have try that." So I spoke to a lot of people in the disabled community in the UK, and different contacts that I had, and different people in chairs and stuff like that, and organisations. And half of them said, "I've never heard of it," and the other half said, "I think you've just made this up or dreamt it because they don't know nothing about it." So after a lot of research, I found a place in America that I could go and try it. But of course, that was very expensive. It meant 3 flights to a very small town in Colorado to go and try it. I spent a week out there and absolutely loved it. And so I thought, well, I've loved it. There's got to be other wheelchair users in the UK that kind of hanker for the same sort of adrenaline that I've always been looking for, a sport that would give me a thrill post-accident, and never found anything that really hit the spot until I did downhill. And I thought, well, that's kind of where I've come from prior to my accident. And the fact that I can get back on a bike and ride downhill again was just such a thrill. And obviously the adrenaline fix it gives you, it was really important to me. And I thought, I had this brainwave on the way home on the flight that, I know, I'll start my own club. That'll be easy. So I then spent about the next 2 or 3 years trying to get it established and get it all the sort of relevant checks done with British Cycling and get all the paperwork in order. And it turned out to be a real hassle, but still worth it. And I kept pushing forward with it. So we can now offer taster days to other people, because one of the biggest sort of barriers to people is getting the equipment. If we've had a lot of people come on taster days and then they say to me, "I want my own bike, can I buy one?" Well, at the time, the only bike that was available was being built in Canada. So I'd have to explain to them, well, you have to buy one from Canada, which isn't cheap. And then, of course, you have to pay for shipping on top. In the UK, the equivalent, in our currency, it was about £8,000 sterling to buy the bike. And then you're talking about another £600 or £700 sterling to ship it over from Canada. And it's just all that hassle and the amount of cost involved in that. Obviously, a lot of people even said to me, "I can buy a small car for that." And I said, well, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, I'm not in control of the cost of these machines, and we don't make any. So, you're stuck with the supplier that makes them. Although they're very, very good bikes, I wouldn't criticize the bikes at all. If anything, I think the bikes are brilliant. The bikes we ride at the moment were built in Canada, but they're absolutely bulletproof. Fantastic machines, and they've been tested by somebody that rides them over the last probably 7 or 8 years, and where he's found a weak spot, he's addressed it and then done something about it. So as time's gone on, the model's been modified ever so slightly as time's progressed to make it better and better and better. So it's really capable of some pretty extreme stuff now. Once the person's got the experience and the ability to match the bike. I've been riding now for sort of 6.5 years, and I don't think I've found the bike's limit yet. I've crashed quite a few times where I've found my own limits. But the bike's more than capable of handling far more than I can throw at it at the moment. So part of the process of setting up the club was to make it more accessible for people to try it initially. That's now developed in the last 12 months into a process of wanting to build a UK bike, because we see there's a situation here now where we think we can make a cheaper bike without it having a detrimental effect on the quality of the machine. And that's ideally what we want to do, to make it more accessible to people, so that when somebody does try it and says to me, "I want my own bike," we can say, well, look, you can buy one in the UK. You can go and look at them before you buy them. Obviously, you've already ridden one with us anyway, but you can go and look at them. You can go and choose your own colour scheme. You can visit the factory that makes them. Obviously, it would cost a lot less than the Canadian model, and there'd be no shipping issues and all the rest of it. But we're also looking at now, because this project's got so far down the line, we're just starting with the research and development before a prototype's built. So we're hoping that by probably summer next year, a prototype will be finished, and we will actually be testing it.
So what do you think? What do you think? Just to wind that Phil, what do you think for the future for not just Rough Riders, but for sort of the gravity mountain biking in the future? Paralympic Games, maybe, or something else in
Well,
the future? You know?
maybe. Although at the moment downhill isn't recognised as an Olympic sport, so it would be difficult. What I've found as far as from that kind of angle, I think Olympic. If a sport has to generally be accepted into the Olympics, usually as a test sport in its first year, and then when it comes around in another 4 years, if they decide it was successful, it gets adopted as a new sport and then becomes a test sport for the Paralympics. So, we've got that. That's quite a long way off in the future if it ever happens. But mountain biking, well, downhill mountain biking is a very sort of, we kind of look after each other type of community. So the downhill events still go on. The World Cup happens every year. It's a well-established sport that kind of looks after itself. So I could see it almost just, I hope it would be accepted and adopted into all these conventional events that already exist.
Yeah.
Whether it be, there's a British downhill series for the keen amateur kind of people and people that are going to step up into a kind of more professional level. So it could be initially introduced there at events like that, so that a lot of keen amateurs could get involved. And then if people really start to shine, they could maybe go on to take it on as a professional sport and, promote themselves and get sponsors. And who knows, eventually maybe there would be a section of the World Cup. Obviously, we'd always have to be a section. We wouldn't be able to race against two wheels because the guys on two wheels have got pedals and they can go faster at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we can't ride the same tracks as them, at the same events as them, just have different qualification at the end, who won on two wheels, who won on four wheels.
Yeah.
And that would be an amazing achievement if we got there in maybe 5 or 6 years time, that we were actually showcasing at events like that. It would be awesome.
I reckon you might get there, Phil, one day. And I certainly hope. Yeah, I certainly hope you do. Now, if Inclusion Club people who are watching this in the future, if you have any inkling of interest in this at all, I really encourage you to have a look at the Rough Riders. They've got a great website. I'm sure Phil will be more than happy to answer questions from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in it, no matter where you are in the world, I would really encourage it. It's obviously possible because people like Phil and Morris there, he gets in the camera. I'm sure he'll answer the questions you might have about this. But I think it's a fantastic initiative here. And like you say, you never know what it might be in terms of integrated into regular mountain bike events into the future. Let's hope it is.
Yeah, that's what we want. Just one big family of downhill mountain bikers. We all look after each other and look out for each other. So there's no reason why we can't get to a stage where we establish events over here. And then who knows, in a few years' time, we might be competing against other teams in Europe and right across the world. That would be really my dream, to be honest.
Fabulous.
Initially, to get other Rough Riders clubs set up around the UK so it's more accessible to people in different areas of the UK. And then in other countries, I can advise people who want to set up their own clubs in other countries. Once this Project Gravity X, which is about the new bike, once that's got to a point where a new bike's ready, we could even organise supply of machines to people and advise them as to training for new people. And then, it could just really snowball and take off from there,
That's great, Phil. There's more information in this episode about Rough Riders, and like I say, do take a look at their website. I'll say thanks there, Phil. Just hold on the line when I finish off the interview here. But thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and hopefully,
thanks a lot, Peter.
Hopefully, you get some. I'm sure you will get some pretty good feedback over time from this episode of the Inclusion Club.
Okay, cheers.